probably heard the phrase fishers of men, right? And like most of us, you probably think you know exactly what it means. But what if I told you that this well-known call to salvation actually started as a metaphor for something much, much darker? Yeah, let's dive into this. So it all starts right here with this incredibly famous verse from the Gospel of Matthew. You can almost picture it. Jesus is walking by the Sea of Galilee. He sees a couple of fishermen, Simon Peter and his brother Andrew, and he says these words. It's a huge moment in Christianity, right? A powerful call to a totally new kind of work. But to really get what's going on, we have to look at what it came to mean, and, maybe more importantly, where it came from. All right, first up, let's unpack the meaning that's been echoing through churches for literally 2,000 years. This is the common positive interpretation, the one that has inspired countless sermons and missions all over the world. So in Christian tradition, this phrase is pretty much universally understood as a metaphor for evangelism. The mission is really clear: to catch people, not to harm them, but to bring them into the community, to gather their souls for salvation. It's a message of rescue, a message of hope. But, this isn't just some simple little saying. It's a really rich, layered metaphor. So let's actually break down the pieces to see exactly how this powerful image of salvation gets built. Okay, so first, the setting. In this metaphor, the sea represents the world itself, a place of chaos, of sin, of turmoil. This idea actually comes from older texts, like the book of Isaiah, which describes the wicked as a tossing sea that just cannot be quiet. So it's this dangerous place, a place you need to be rescued from. So, if the sea is this world of sin, then it's pretty clear who the fish are, right? They're the souls of people just swimming in it. And the net? Well, that becomes the tool for salvation, the church itself. The act of fishing, then, is totally transformed into this heroic rescue mission, pulling souls from those dangerous waters and bringing them to safety. And this idea, this interpretation, it got locked into Christian thought really early on. This quote right here, it's from one of the earliest Christian hymns we know of, written way back in the late 2nd or early 3rd century. You can see the whole metaphor is already there. The troubled sea, the rescue, it's all baked right in. And that seems like a pretty complete story, right? Case closed. Well, not so fast. Because what's really fascinating is that this positive image of salvation might actually be a reimagining of a much older and, honestly, a much less comforting idea. And this is the key question that just blows the whole other side of the story wide open. If we take a step back from the New Testament and look at the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, the texts Jesus and his disciples would have known inside and out, does being fished have that same hopeful meaning? The answer is a surprising and a really loud no. What's wild is that the very same commentaries that explain the salvation metaphor, they actually hint at this. They point back to the prophet Jeremiah and admit the phrase had been used before, but, and this is a direct quote, then it had presented its darker aspect. So let's go find out what that darker aspect really was. So get ready, because we are now entering a totally different symbolic world. In the Tanakh, fishing for men wasn't a metaphor for rescue at all. It was a metaphor for divine judgment, carried out by conquerors and oppressors. Yeah, throughout the Hebrew scriptures, the image of fishers and their nets was consistently used to describe enemy nations capturing the people of Israel. It was a terrifying image of being caught, of losing your freedom, of being dragged away from your home. And here it is, the verse from Jeremiah. Now listen to this. God is speaking, but he's not sending fishers to save his people. He's sending them as agents of punishment, to catch the people of Israel who have turned away from him. These fishers are foreign armies, and getting caught in their net means judgment and exile. The prophet Habakkuk uses the same powerful imagery. He's crying out to God, and he's describing the brutal Chaldean army as a fisherman who just mercilessly catches helpless people in his net. In this metaphor, people are like fish without a ruler, easily scooped up, completely conquered. It's a metaphor for total and absolute domination. So, how on earth do we put these two completely opposite meanings together? On the one hand, a beautiful metaphor for salvation. On the other, a terrifying image of judgment and oppression. What's going on here? When you put them side by side, it's pretty stark. The New Testament view frames it as this positive act of rescue from a sinful world. But the Tanakh, the Old Testament view, it frames it as a deeply negative image of being captured by enemies, an act of judgment. The same action, catching men, has a completely inverted meaning depending on the context. So, what this all suggests is something pretty brilliant, actually. It suggests that the writers of the New Testament took a powerful, existing metaphor, a symbol that everyone at the time would have known as a symbol of being conquered, and they flipped it on its head. They repurposed the image of a net of judgment into a net of salvation. They turned an act of capture into an act of rescue. And this leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. I mean, if a phrase as central and as well known as fishers of men has this complex, two-sided history, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other words and ideas that we use every day that we take for granted have a hidden, forgotten story buried just beneath the surface?